When you think of philosophy, the shameless behavior of Diogenes the Cynic probably isn't the first thing that comes to mind. Diogenes strongly opposed social values and institutions because, according to him, these are at odds with human nature. He ridiculed people on the streets, disrespected authority, broke with all forms of etiquette, and didn't care about personal hygiene. On top of that, he defecated, urinated, and even sexually gratified himself in public. He believed that human society infused us with all kinds of unnatural desires that are not only obsolete, but also prevent us from being happy. Therefore, we should strip ourselves of these corrupting man-made constructs, so we're able to live how we're supposed to live, in agreement with nature. Diogenes was the embodiment of poverty. He lived in a barrel near the marketplace in the city-state of Corinth. He owned nothing except for some old rags and a bowl to eat and drink from. When he saw a child drinking water using his hands, he threw away the bowl as well. Even though he was poor and rejected social norms and customs, he wasn't cut off from society. In fact, as the odd man out, he challenged people by striking up conversations and confronting them with their faults. The famous philosopher Plato was a contemporary of Diogenes, who believed that ideas are the basis of reality. Diogenes, however, criticized him for being too theoretical. He often mocked Plato by disturbing his lectures. On one occasion, Plato was given praise because of his definition of a human being, namely, a featherless chicken. As a response, Diogenes plucked a chicken, entered Plato's academy, and said, "Behold, I've brought you a man." In a way, we could see Diogenes as an anti-philosopher. He rejected the necessity of an expansive ethical system and all kinds of other academic fuzz. His philosophy was shown through his actions, and this method was the key to his success. His down-to-earth philosophy was easily accessible by the masses, and cynicism as a philosophical school would later flourish in Greece and Rome. Plato, despite acknowledging Diogenes' brilliance and wit, disapproved of his obscene behavior and called him Socrates gone mad. Many anecdotes describe Diogenes as dog-like or doggish. When he was asked why people describe him that way, he replied, "I fawn on those who give me anything, I yelp at those who refuse, and I set my teeth in rascals." However, one day he took his aspirations to be dog-like to a whole new level, when a group of wealthy Athenians at a banquet disrespectfully threw bones at him. His response, lifting his leg and urinating on them. Diogenes himself wasn't married. He satisfied his sexual desires by masturbating, which he did unsurprisingly in public. When he was ridiculed because of this, he answered, "I wish it were as easy to banish hunger by rubbing my belly." Probably the most famous anecdote about Diogenes is the one in which he mocked Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was a king of Macedon, and one of the most successful military commanders in history. During his rule, he was able to establish an empire stretching from Greece to India. When Alexander stayed in Corinth, Diogenes took not the slightest notice of him, as opposed to many other philosophers and statesmen who hurried to congratulate their monarch with his accomplishments. Alexander wished to meet this doggish man he had heard about, so he decided to look for him, and found him lying in the sun. When Diogenes saw him coming, he raised himself up a little when he saw so many people coming towards him, and fixed his eyes upon Alexander. And when that monarch addressed him with greetings and asked if he wanted anything, "Yes," said Diogenes, "stand a little out of my sun." Alexander was struck by this treatment. Showing great admiration for Diogenes, he told his followers, "If I were not Alexander, I wish I were Diogenes." There's no consensus about how Diogenes died. Some say he died because of rabies, as he was always surrounded by his best friends, dogs. Others believe he died of food poisoning, and some say he ended his own life by holding his breath.